The sound of silence in a season of suffering is not the sound of God's absence. It is the sound of the Master Craftsman focused intensely on his work. You have been walking through a valley that feels like it has no end, looking up at a heaven that feels like brass, wondering if the promises of the Bible have finally reached their expiration date for you. You see the world moving forward, you see others dancing on their mountaintops. And here you are still in the shadows, still carrying a weight that seems to grow heavier with every prayer you whisper. But I have come to tell you today that the very darkness you are trying to flee is the laboratory of your destiny. In the book of Genesis, we see the pattern of the Creator. It says that darkness was upon the face of the deep, and then God spoke. We focus on the light, but we forget that the light was born out of the dark. We focus on the harvest, but we forget that every seed must first endure the crushing weight of the earth and the absolute isolation of the soil before it can ever see the sun. You feel crushed, not because you are being destroyed, but because you are being planted. You feel isolated, not because you are forgotten, but because the work God is doing in you is too sacred for public viewing. Think of the life of Joseph. For 13 years, he lived in the shadow of a lie. He was betrayed by his blood, sold for silver, and cast into a dungeon for a crime he didn't commit. In the cold dampness of that Egyptian cell, Joseph could have concluded that his dreams were delusions. He could have said, "If God is with me, why is the iron at my neck?" But the theology of the kingdom tells us that the pit was the only path to the palace. If Joseph had not been cast into the dark, he would have never been positioned to save the world from famine. God was not punishing Joseph. He was preserving him. He was sharpening a tool that would eventually sustain a nation. Your prison is actually your preparation. The very thing that looks like it is holding you back is actually holding you up until the appointed time of your release. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 45:3, "I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places." There are things you can only learn about the character of God when the lights are out. You cannot know Him as a healer until you are sick. You cannot know Him as a provider until you are broke. You cannot know Him as a comforter until your heart is shattered. The treasures of darkness are the revelations of His faithfulness that are invisible in the bright midday of prosperity. When you are in the dark, you stop looking at your circumstances and you start feeling for His hand. And in that search, you find a level of intimacy that the comfortable will never understand. You must move from a "why me?" faith to an "even if" faith. The three Hebrew boys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, stood before a furnace heated 7 times hotter than normal. They didn't have a guarantee of a cool breeze. They had a conviction in a sovereign God. They said, "Our God is able to deliver us. But even if He doesn't, we will not bow." This is the pinnacle of the Christian walk, to trust the heart of the Father when you cannot see the hand of the Father. When you decide that His presence is more important than your deliverance, the fire loses its power over you. Note that they weren't alone in that fire. The king looked in and saw 4 men walking, and the fourth was like the Son of God. The miracle wasn't that they were kept from the fire, but that they were kept in the fire. Christ does not always stop the storm from hitting your boat, but He promises that the boat will not sink as long as He is the captain. Look at the cross. To the disciples, it was the ultimate Dark Friday. It was the end of the hope, the burial of the king, the victory of the grave. It looked like a mess. It looked like a mistake. It looked like the dark threads had finally choked out the light. But from the perspective of heaven, it was the greatest masterpiece of all time. The very event that looked like the defeat of God was actually the defeat of death. The blood that looked like a tragedy was actually the bridge to eternity. If God can take the horrific execution of His only Son and turn it into the salvation of the entire human race, what makes you think He cannot take your current struggle and turn it into a testimony of His glory? Romans 8:28 is not a shallow cliché. It is a spiritual law. All things, the good, the bad, the ugly, the confusing, and the heartbreaking, are being stirred together in the cauldron of His sovereignty to produce something that is for your good and His glory. The working together is happening right now, even while you are weeping. The weaver is at the loom. He is taking that black thread of your loneliness and weaving it next to the golden thread of His grace to create a depth of color that would be impossible with light colors alone. He's not making it up as He goes. He is following a blueprint that was finished before the foundations of the world were laid. So do not quit praying because the room is quiet. Do not stop believing because the ground is dry. The prophet Elijah put his head between his knees and prayed for rain 7 times while the sky was still clear. He didn't wait for the cloud to start praying, he prayed until the cloud appeared. Your persistence in the dark is the highest form of worship. It tells the heavens and the earth that your faith is not based on what you see, but on who He is. You are close to the breakthrough. The darkest part of the night is always the moment right before the sun peaks over the horizon. The labor pains are at their most intense right before the new life is born. Stand up in your valley, speak to those dry bones. Acknowledge the pain, but submit it to the promise. You are a child of the Most High God, and you were not created to be a victim of your circumstances, but a victor through Christ Jesus. The oil for your lamp is being pressed out of you in this season of pressure. The wine of your future joy is being crushed out of the grapes of your current sorrow. It is a process. It is a holy, intentional, divine process. The weaver hasn't dropped the needle. The potter hasn't abandoned the clay. The father hasn't forgotten the child. You are safe, you are loved, and you are being prepared for a weight of glory that will make these light afflictions seem like a distant memory. Keep your eyes on the King. The masterpiece is almost finished.